Can you hear me all right? Good. Can I just say thank you for your prayers for last week for the Life Expo we had at Horsley Park Evangelical Church. We had 286 children go through the exhibition, and one lad said it's the best church he's ever been to. I think that's because he got tablets and headphones and he thought church was always like that. But if he comes, he'll find out it isn't. I spent a couple of hours this week doing a worksheet for you to do as you were sitting around. I forgot to give them out, so they're sitting there on the table if you want to. Well, no, you do them afterwards now. It's kind of a word search. You've got to fit the words into the grid, and it took me ages to do it. And I actually put one of the words in, and my wife did it in about 3 minutes. I thought, oh, forget that, so I took the word out to make it a bit harder for you. So you can take it if you wish and do it, or not do it. It's entirely up to you. I've got a bit of a cold and a sore throat, so you'll have to forgive me if my throat goes a little bit funny halfway through. Get myself sorted out. Can I hang that somewhere? Can that go on there? No, stick in my pocket there. There we go. So what do you know about the life of Samson? What do you think about Samson? Do you know what pardon?
Honey.
Honey?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. We're not doing that bit today, though. No. Well, Samson and Delilah I've got to do. Yeah. Any idea how big Samson was?
Long hair then.
Yeah, long hair, yeah. Was he big? Was he? We don't know. Yeah. Sorry? Well, where did his strength come from? Did it?
Jesus.
Yeah, it came from God. His strength came from God. And the hair was a significant showing that his hair came from. Well, that's my understanding now. I might be wrong. You know, I'm not always right. Any idea what his shoulder, from shoulder to shoulder was? How wide it would be? Well, do you think he'd be a Schwarzenegger? Or do you think he'd be a Terry? A Schwarzenegger. Well, I don't know why, but I googled it last night, you know, just to see how, you know, and they reckon it was, I can't remember in cubits now, whatever it was in cubits, but it's about 1 metre from shoulder to shoulder across his back, you know, so I don't know how.
That's 30 inches, isn't it?
36 inches.
No, that's 39. 30 inches, isn't it? Oh, 39 is a bit.
Yeah, come on, Ursula, get it right. If you're going to say, if you're going to say it, get it right. Come on. Anyway, to start the story, I'm just going to give you a bit of intro into the story of Samson. In chapter 13 of Judges, if you want to read it, it starts in Judges chapter 13 and it just follows on through. And Samson is the last of the judges. But the recurring theme through it is, again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, so the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. So the Philistines allowed the Israelites to live, but they were ruling over them. But then an angel, excuse me, visited a man called Manoah and his wife, who were childless, and they said, "You will conceive and give birth to a son, no razor may be used on his head, because the boy is to be a Nazarite, set apart to God from birth, and he will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines." So that was Samson's task that was given to him, to deliver the Israelites from the hands of the Philistines, these oppressive people that were living in the land. And that took 20 years to come to fruition. I don't know how old Samson was at the time that he finished, but that was his role. And he had this strength, this extraordinary strength. So the strength he had came from God, but it was signified by the hair that he had. 7 braids of hair on his head. And he used his strength, and it says the Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power. So it's God's power that enabled him to kill the lion, to slay 30 Philistines for their clothes, because he made this riddle, out of the strong came forth sweetness, etc. And then he said, if you didn't plough with my wife, you wouldn't have known. the answer. So he killed 30 Philistines to get their clothes to pay the debt that he owed. And then he killed 1,000 with the jawbone of an ass. So he didn't always do the right thing. Although he was gifted by God with this enormous strength, he didn't always do what God wanted. And what I found interesting when I was reading it is that he found a Philistine woman and he wanted to marry her. And his parents would normally choose his wife for him. They didn't realise this was from God to start bringing a bit of animosity, as it was, or friendship in a way, between the Philistines and the Israelites. But what we're thinking about this morning particularly is Samson and Delilah. So it says in chapter 16 and verse, sometime later he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Serach whose name was Delilah. So it seems as though Samson fell in love with Delilah, but Delilah didn't fall in love with Samson. It was kind of a one-way street. And we'll find that as we go through the story what happened. So what happened then is that the rulers of the Philistines went to Delilah and said, see if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him so that we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver. Any idea how much 1,100 shekels of silver is? Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. Well, if you think that when Joseph was sold into slavery, he went for 20 pieces of silver. So the amount of money, and they think, I don't know where I got it from, but they think there's about 5 Philistines are involved in this. So 5 times that is what? You're good at maths here, aren't you? Right? Yeah, anyway, I'll tell you, it was enough to buy 275 slaves. That's how much they wanted Samson, how much they wanted to capture him, because he's a thorn in their flesh. And so starts this downward spiral of Samson. So when he goes into Delilah, she says to Samson, tell me the secret of your great strength, how you can be tied up and subdued her. Now, I don't know whether saying was a bit thick or whatever, or they say love is blind, don't they? You know, whether he was so much in love with Delilah that he didn't see what was coming. And it says, if anyone ties me with 7 fresh thongs that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man. And I was going to put thongs on the crossword, but I thought you might get the wrong idea if I did that, so I didn't put it in. So they said, I'll become as weak as any man. Now this is getting a bit, you know, so you imagine if there's 5 Philistines, they're hiding in the room. And they bring 7 fresh thongs that have not been dried, and she tied him up. Now I always thought that Samson was asleep in these times, but it doesn't say that. So I'm trying to think what's going on while Delilah is tying Samson up. You know, let's not go down that road, shall we? Because it says, with the men hidden in the room, she called to him, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. But he snapped the thongs as easily as a piece of string, so that the secret of his strength was not discovered. Now, this conspiracy that's going on, you know, she's got 5 Philistines hiding in the room. And you would think Samson say, this ain't working out right, is it? Hey, I love this lady, and yet she's trying to dupe me into finding out my strength. So then she goes, you've made a fool of me, you lied to me, come and tell me how you can be tried. So if anyone ties me up with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become weak like any other man. Now, is Delilah a bit stupid or what? I don't know. Because they'd already tied him up with new ropes when the Israelites had tied him up to hand him over to the Philistines, and he snapped them as easy as anything. And so she took them and tied him up with men hidden in the room again. Samson, the Philistines are up, but he snapped the ropes of all his arms as if they were threads. Then Delilah said to him, until now you've been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell me how you can do it. And so then we go on to the next one, which is, now why had she got a weaver's loom in the room? I don't know, but it says, if you put my 7 braids of hair in this, and tightened it with a pin. Again she called to him, Samson, the Philistines are on you. He woke from his sleep, pulled out the pin, and the loom and the fabric. The loom with the fabric. And so 3 times she'd asked him, 3 times he'd said things, but each of them was a lie. Now, I want to shout at Samson now, Samson, wake up. Can't you see what's going on here? Can't you see that she's trying to lure you so you could be captured? And she said, how can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? Well, you would have thought Samson would have said, look, God's called me to deliver the Philistines. And I'm here in this situation now. And 3 times she's tried to find where I get my strength from. Surely I should walk away from this situation. But he doesn't. And sometimes, maybe in our life, that's like that. We get warning signals about not to do something. It's all right, I can manage it, I can cope, I'm all right. And this is the bit that I like. She said, you made a fool of me and haven't told me a secret of your strength. With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was tired to death. Well, if he was tired to death, he said, that's it, Delilah, I'm off. That's it. Even though I love you, I'm off because God has given me this task to do. And so he told her, I've been a Nazarite, set apart to God since birth. If my head was shaved, my strength would leave me, and I'd become as weak as any other man. When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the Philistines, come back, he's told me everything. And then it says, having put him to sleep. Now I don't know, but it's just a suggestion. Did she drug him? Because if somebody's going to cut your hair, surely you would wake up. And so I think that she drugged him to sleep. I don't know, it's not in the Bible, that's just my suggestion that she did. Having put him to sleep on her lap, she called the men to shave off the 7 braids of his hair and began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called to Samson, the Philistines are on you. He woke up from his sleep, I'll go out as before and shake himself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. It's a sorry state of affairs. That Samson could have walked away. And so the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes and took him down to Gaza, binding him with the bronze shackles. They set him to grinding in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow after it had been shaved. And so they took Samson. I haven't even watched my notes, have I? Never mind. They took Samson and they took him to the place where they were having parties and celebrations. And they thought, let's have some fun. And so they thought they'd bring Samson out and make ridicule and fun of him. I don't know how long after this it was, but he got his strength back. And so the people were there celebrating and drinking and having fun. And I remember as a little boy, them telling me this story, and the little boy that was looking after Samson would take him to the 2 pillars that were centre to the temple or the palace where they were. And he said, just let me rest here. And it says that Samson prayed, O sovereign Lord, remember me. O God, please strengthen me just one more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Then Samson reached towards the 2 centre pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than when he lived. They reckon it was about 3,000 people that he killed on that one day when he pushed the pillars down. But I was reminded of Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, when I was reading this story. And Cain and Abel were offering sacrifices to God. And Abel's was accepted and Cain's wasn't. And God said to Cain, sin is crouching at the door. You've got an opportunity to repent. You've got an opportunity to say sorry. But Cain didn't do that. He took his brother out and he killed him. And I think as I read through this story of Samson, that sin was crouching at the door. Samson, don't do this. Don't go down that road. Don't do this kind of thing. God's got a purpose and a plan. But he just thought about himself, thought about his love, thought about his care for Delilah. But you know, the amazing thing is, right at the beginning, we said that Samson would be the deliverer of the Philistines. And through Samson's death, the last of the judges, the Israelites were delivered from the Philistines. So God, even though Samson had messed up big time, even though he'd failed in human parlance, as it were, doing what God wanted, God didn't say to Samson when he was in the temple, "Oh, sorry Samson, you've blown it, you've had your chance." No. God gave him the strength to accomplish what he did. And you and I in our lives, we do falter, we do fail, we do make mistakes, we do get it wrong. But God doesn't turn around and say, "Look, you've had your opportunity, you've had your chance, I'm going to use somebody else." God picks us up and God will use us and bless us and bring blessings into other people's lives. Through his failures, his highs and lows, God brought about his purposes. And in your life and my life, with our idiosyncrasies, with our faults, with our failures, God will bring about the purposes in your life and my life to bring blessing into people's lives. God is not looking for perfect people. God is looking for people who are willing to do his perfect will. He doesn't want your ability, he wants your availability so that you can be a channel blessing into people's lives. Satan might tell you that you're a failure, but God will not. He will take us and use us, faults and failures. We fix our eyes on Jesus. One final thought. Samson lost his life bringing about God's purposes for the Israelites. In the New Testament, we are told about losing our life in the purposes of God. Matthew 16:25 says, "For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will find it." And Samson proved that. He was the deliverer of the Israelites. And you and I have got a message of hope, a message of life, a message of love that God calls us to send out into this dark world. We are to be lights shining in dark places. We might think we're only a little candle, but that little candle makes a difference to some people's lives. I'm going to listen to